I was in my Denver hotel room at 3 a.m. rehearsing my presentation for the biggest client pitch of my career when my phone exploded with calls. My mother's voice broke through sobbing. "Victoria, honey, you need to come home right now. Grandpa collapsed at dinner. The doctors say he had a massive stroke. He's asking for you. Please, we might lose him tonight." My world shattered. I abandoned everything, the presentation, my team, my career moment, and booked the first flight home, crying in the taxi to the airport. The airplane turbulence couldn't compare to the chaos spinning through my mind during that endless 6-hour journey from Denver back to Portland. I clutched my phone, refreshing flight tracking apps every few minutes, willing the plane to move faster through the clouds. Mom's words echoed in my head. Massive stroke. Asking for you while it might lose him tonight. Grandpa Harold had raised me after Dad died when I was 12. The thought of losing him felt like losing my anchor to everything good in this world. I called the hospital 3 times during my layover in Phoenix, but the nurses kept saying family members were still with him and couldn't provide updates to anyone calling. Mom's phone went straight to voicemail. My younger brother Jake wasn't answering either. The silence terrified me more than any news could have. Landing in Portland at 11 p.m. felt surreal. The airport buzzed with normal life while mine crumbled. I grabbed the first taxi and gave the driver Providence Medical Center's address, promising an extra $50 if he could break a few speed limits safely. The city lights blurred past my window as I imagined Grandpa Harold lying motionless in some sterile room machines beeping around him. But when I burst through the hospital's automatic doors, the information desk clerk looked confused. Harold Morrison. "We don't have anyone by that name admitted today. Are you sure about the hospital?" My blood turned cold. I called Mom again. Still voicemail. Something felt wrong, but grief makes you paranoid, right? Maybe they'd transferred him somewhere else. Maybe I'd misunderstood which hospital. I drove to Mom's house in my rental car, hands shaking on the steering wheel. The porch light was on, but no cars filled the driveway except Mom's old Honda. Where was everyone if Grandpa was dying? I used my key and stepped inside, calling out. No response. The house felt eerily quiet for a family crisis. Then I heard it. The unmistakable sound of Grandpa Harold's laughter drifting from the backyard. I followed the sound like someone in a trance, pushing through the sliding glass door onto the patio. There he sat in his favorite lawn chair, completely healthy, sharing a beer with my Uncle Tom and discussing baseball scores like any other Tuesday night. Victoria. Grandpa Harold's face lit up as he spotted me. "What brings you home, sweetheart? Thought you were conquering Denver this week." The world tilted sideways. "Grandpa, You're okay. Mom said you had a stroke. She said you were in the hospital asking for me." His expression shifted to confusion, then concern. "A stroke, honey. I've been fine all day. Helped Tom fix his fence this afternoon, then we came here for dinner. Linda made her famous pot roast." He stood up, moving with the same spry energy he'd always had. "Where's your mother? She didn't say anything about calling you." Uncle Tom frowned. "Linda seemed nervous during dinner, kept checking her phone. Said she had some business to handle later tonight. Left about an hour ago." My phone buzzed. Derek, my business partner, calling for the 4th time since I'd landed. My stomach dropped as I remembered abandoning our biggest presentation. "I have to take this," I mumbled, walking back inside. "Victoria, thank God you're answering." Derek's voice carried panic I'd never heard before. "Where are you?" "We've got a serious problem. Margaret's been trying to reach you for hours." "Derek, I'm dealing with a family emergency. Grandpa had a stroke and Victoria, listen to me carefully. Someone accessed our main investment account tonight using your authorization codes. $2 million has been transferred out. The account is empty." The phone slipped from my hand, clattering onto Mom's kitchen floor. $2 million. Gone. While I was flying home in tears over a lie. While Grandpa Harold sat perfectly healthy in the backyard, unaware that my mother had destroyed my life with a single phone call. I picked up the phone with trembling fingers. "Derek, I need you to call the police and the FBI. Someone's been playing a very sophisticated game, and I think I know who. I sat in Mom's living room at midnight staring at family photos that now felt like evidence in a crime scene. Derek had texted me screenshots of the bank transfers $2 million moved in precise increments to 3 different offshore accounts between 9 and 11 p.m., the exact window when I was crying in airplane bathrooms believing my grandfather was dying. Mom's key turned in the front door at 12:30 a.m. She walked in humming stopping cold when she saw me sitting in the dark living room with my arms crossed. "Victoria, honey, what are you doing here? Is everything okay?" Her voice carried perfect surprise, but I caught something else underneath relief mixed with fear. "Funny question, Mom, considering you called me crying about Grandpa's stroke 6 hours ago." Her face went pale. She set down her purse with careful precision, buying time. "Oh, honey, false alarm. You know how these things go with older folks. One minute they're feeling dizzy, next minute they're fine. I tried calling you back, but your phone kept going to voicemail." "Really? Because I just spent 2 hours at the hospital looking for a patient who was never admitted, and another hour talking to Grandpa Harold in your backyard where he's been healthy all day." I stood up, my voice gaining strength. "And while I was flying home in panic, someone stole $2 million from my company using my security credentials." Mom's composure cracked like ice under pressure. She collapsed into her recliner, hands covering her face. For several minutes only, the grandfather clock's ticking filled the silence. "How much do you know?" she finally whispered. "I know you lied about the emergency. I know someone accessed my accounts while I was unreachable. I know you've been asking detailed questions about my business for months. Connect the dots for me, Mom." Linda Morrison, the woman who'd taught me about honesty and integrity, began to crumble before my eyes. "Victoria, you have to understand. I never meant for it to go this far. I was just supposed to take enough to cover my debts, maybe $50,000. But when Jake showed me how much money was sitting in those accounts..." "Jake, my brother, helped you steal from me." "Jake didn't know what we were really doing." Mom's voice turned defensive. "I told him I needed to access your accounts to help with tax planning. He's such a sweet boy, always trying to help family. He used his computer skills to get past your security, but he thought we were legitimately helping you organize your finances." The betrayal cut deeper than any business loss. What debts, Mom? What could be worth destroying your daughter's life? Mom's story poured out like poison from an infected wound. For 18 months, she'd been gambling online. It started innocent $5 bets on football games, harmless fun during lonely evenings. But the losses mounted, and she'd started chasing bigger wins to recover smaller losses. Within a year, she owed $800,000 to people who made their threats very clear. They came to the house, Victoria, 3 men in suits who knew where you worked, where Jake went to school, where Grandpa Harold lived. They gave me 6 months to pay, or they'd start collecting from family members. "So you decided to steal from me instead of asking for help. How could I ask? You'd worked so hard building your company. I couldn't destroy your dreams because of my stupidity." She looked up with tears streaming. "When I learned about your big investment round, I saw a way to fix everything quietly. Take just enough to pay them off, then slowly pay you back without you ever knowing." "But you took $2 million, not $800,000. Mom's voice dropped to barely audible. "The offshore accounts were Jake's idea. He said if we were going to do this, we needed to make it look like professional hackers, not family theft. So we set up multiple transfers, multiple destinations. But when I saw how easy it was, when I realized how much money you actually had..." She paused, shame flooding her features. "I took extra for Jake's student loans, and some for a safety cushion. And then I thought about what this could mean for our whole family's future." "Our family's future? You mean your escape plan?" "No, Victoria, I swear it wasn't like that initially. But once the money was gone, once I realized how serious this was, I started thinking maybe we should all disappear together. Start fresh somewhere else." Grandpa Harold appeared in the doorway, having heard our voices. His face showed confusion aging into disappointment as he processed the conversation. "Linda, what have you done?" His voice carried more pain than I'd ever heard from him. Mom looked at her father with complete shame. Dad, I'm so sorry. I got in over my head and I dragged the kids into my mess. Grandpa, I said carefully, how much did you know about Mom's gambling? He sat down heavily on the couch. I've known for about a year, sweetheart. Found some threatening letters she'd hidden in my garage. I've been selling my antique collection piece by piece, trying to help her pay down the debts without anyone knowing. The room went silent. Grandpa Harold had been sacrificing his most treasured possessions items he'd collected for 40 years to save his daughter from consequences she'd hidden from everyone. Dad, you sold your antiques. Mom's voice cracked. Your grandfather's pocket watch, the Civil War memorabilia. Everything except your grandmother's engagement ring. Managed to raise about $300,000 over the past year. I thought we were making progress. He looked at me with apologetic eyes. Victoria, I had no idea she was involving you and Jake. Mom broke down completely, then sobbing into her hands. I've ruined everything. My own father sacrificing his memories, my children's lives destroyed all because I couldn't stop pulling slot machine handles on my phone. I felt anger and pity warring in my chest. Where's the money now, Mom? Cryptocurrency wallets. Jake set them up. He has all the access codes. She looked up desperately. Victoria, we can give it back, all of it. Just please don't call the police. Please don't destroy Jake's life because of my mistakes. I walked to the window, looking out at the neighborhood where I'd grown up feeling safe and loved. Mom Derek already called the FBI. This isn't just family drama anymore. This is federal wire fraud. And in about 6 hours, my company will declare bankruptcy if that money isn't back in our accounts. The FBI. Mom's voice turned to terror. Oh God, Victoria, what have I done? What she'd done was force me to choose between protecting my family and protecting my life's work. But as I looked at Grandpa Harold's heartbroken expression, I realized the choice had already been made for me. I drove to Morrison Dynamics headquarters at 5 a.m., my mind racing through damage control scenarios. The parking lot stood empty, except for Margaret Williams' silver Prius. My CFO had clearly been there all night. I found her in our conference room surrounded by printouts, laptop screens, and empty coffee cups, looking like she'd aged 5 years since yesterday. Victoria, thank goodness. Margaret stood up, her usually pristine appearance disheveled. I've been running numbers all night. We have approximately 18 hours before our payroll system auto-drafts employee salaries. Without that $2 million, the company account will overdraft by $1.7 million. What about our operating reserve? That's what I'm trying to explain. Whoever accessed our accounts didn't just take the investment money. They transferred everything above our minimum balance requirements. We have enough cash to cover basic utilities and rent through the end of this month, but that's it. Derek burst through the conference room door, still wearing yesterday's presentation clothes. Victoria, the FBI wants to interview you immediately. Agent Sarah Murphy called my cell 20 minutes ago. She's on her way here now. I slumped into my usual chair at the head of our conference table, looking around at the walls covered with our company's growth charts and success photos. 15 employees depended on Morrison Dynamics for their livelihoods. We'd gone from a 3-person startup to a thriving consulting firm in just 4 years. Now it could all disappear because my mother couldn't control her gambling addiction. There's more, Margaret said quietly. I need to tell you both something I've been tracking for the past 3 weeks. Derek and I looked at her expectantly. I've been documenting unusual security breaches in our system. Someone's been attempting to access various accounts using different employee credentials, but the attempts were sophisticated. They weren't triggering our standard security alerts. You think it was an inside job? Derek asked. I suspected it, but couldn't prove anything. The breach attempts always came from different IP addresses, different devices, different times of day. But the patterns suggested someone with intimate knowledge of our security protocols and employee schedules. My stomach sank lower. Margaret, why didn't you tell me about this earlier? I tried calling you yesterday afternoon, but Derek said you were deep in presentation prep and couldn't be disturbed. I planned to brief you this morning before the Denver meeting. She pulled out a folder. But when the actual theft happened last night, I realized we were dealing with something much bigger than random hackers. What do you mean? The timing was too perfect, Victoria. Someone knew exactly when you'd be unreachable, exactly which accounts had the largest balances, and exactly how to navigate our multi-factor authentication systems. This wasn't opportunistic. This was planned. Derek ran his hands through his hair. Are you saying someone's been watching our company for weeks planning this theft? I'm saying someone had inside information about Victoria's travel schedule, our security systems, and our financial status. The kind of information that only comes from... Margaret paused, choosing her words carefully. From someone very close to company leadership. Before I could respond, Agent Sarah Murphy knocked on our glass conference room door. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 30s, with sharp eyes that seemed to catalog every detail in the room. Ms. Morrison, I'm Agent Murphy, FBI Financial Crimes Division. I understand you've had quite a night. For the next 2 hours, I explained everything: Mom's phone call, the fake emergency, Grandpa Harold's health, the family confrontation. Agent Murphy took detailed notes, asked pointed questions, and recorded our conversation with my permission. Ms. Morrison, I need to ask you directly. Did you authorize anyone to access your company accounts last night? Absolutely not. I was panicked about my grandfather's supposed medical emergency. I didn't think about business for 6 hours. And you're certain your family members had no legitimate reason to access these accounts? None whatsoever. My mother and brother have never been involved in company operations. Agent Murphy flipped through her notes. The transfers show sophisticated knowledge of cryptocurrency conversion and offshore banking. This wasn't amateur hour. Someone with significant technical skills orchestrated this theft. Derek leaned forward. Agent Murphy, what are the chances of recovering the money? That depends on several factors. Cryptocurrency can be traced if we move quickly, but if it's been converted and moved multiple times, recovery becomes much more difficult. She looked directly at me. Ms. Morrison, your cooperation in this investigation is crucial. If family members are involved, you'll need to decide whether you're willing to press charges against them. The room fell silent. Margaret and Derek stared at me, waiting for an answer that would determine not just my family's fate, but the survival of our company. Agent Murphy, I need to know if we don't recover this money within 24 hours, my company will go bankrupt. 15 people will lose their jobs right before Christmas. Is there any way to expedite this investigation? We're treating this as a priority case because of the amount involved. But Ms. Morrison, I have to warn you, even if we arrest the perpetrators today, frozen assets can take weeks or months to release through court proceedings. My phone buzzed with a text from our biggest client, Henderson and Associates. Victoria hearing rumors about financial instability at Morrison Dynamics. Need to discuss contract status immediately. I showed the message to Derek and Margaret. Our reputation was already spreading through our professional network like poison. Derek's face went pale. If Henderson withdraws their contract, we lose 60% of our revenue base. And if word gets out about FBI investigations, Margaret added, every other client will follow suit. Agent Murphy gathered her materials. Ms. Morrison, I need a decision about pressing charges. Your family members committed federal crimes. But if you want our full cooperation in asset recovery, you need to decide if you're willing to see this through to prosecution. After Agent Murphy left, the three of us sat in stunned silence. Through the conference room windows, I watched Portland wake up people driving to jobs that felt secure. People who didn't know their mothers were criminals. Victoria. Derek said finally, "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking my mother destroyed my life to save her own. I'm thinking my brother betrayed my trust to help her do it. And I'm thinking that if I don't fight back, 15 innocent people will pay the price for my family's crimes." Margaret nodded slowly. "So what's our next move?" "We fight back, but we do it smart." By noon, I'd assembled a war council in our conference room. Derek and Margaret were joined by Jennifer Hartley, the best forensic accountant in Portland, and Thomas Rodriguez, a cybersecurity specialist who'd helped other companies recover from major breaches. I decided that if my family wanted to play sophisticated criminal games, I'd show them what real professionals could do. "Let me understand the timeline," Jennifer said, reviewing the financial records. "The initial breach attempts started 3 weeks ago, but the actual theft happened during a precisely timed window when you were emotionally compromised and unreachable." "That's correct. My mother called with a fake emergency right when she knew I'd be focused on the biggest presentation of my career." Thomas pulled up screens of code on his laptop. "Victoria, I've analyzed the security breach patterns Margaret documented. Whoever did this had intimate knowledge of your personal habits, your business travel schedule, and your security protocols. They knew exactly when you'd be vulnerable. My brother Jake works in IT. He's been to our office several times for family gatherings. He would have seen our security setup." "It goes deeper than that," Thomas continued. "I found evidence of spyware installed on your personal devices. Someone's been monitoring your emails, text messages, and calendar appointments for at least 2 months." My blood ran cold. "You're saying they've been watching me for 2 months, reading my private communications? Not just reading copying. Every password you've typed, every security code you've entered, every business strategy you've discussed. They've had complete access to your digital life." Jennifer spread out bank records across the table. The theft pattern shows 3 primary destinations for the money. 800,000 went to offshore accounts that immediately converted to cryptocurrency. Another 600,000 went to what appears to be debt consolidation payments to various financial institutions. The remaining 600,000... "Where did it go?" I asked. "That's where it gets interesting. The final portion went to a real estate purchase in Florida, specifically a luxury condominium in Miami Beach purchased under the name Patricia Wells." Derek frowned. "Who's Patricia Wells?" "Someone who shares your mother's birthday, social security number, and physical description," Jennifer replied. "Victoria, your mother's been building a false identity for months. The Florida property purchase suggests she was planning to disappear." The betrayal cut deeper than I'd imagined possible. She was going to abandon us, leave us dealing with her mess while she lived in luxury in Miami. Margaret leaned forward. "There's more. I've been analyzing the timing of various account accesses. The spyware on your devices wasn't just for this theft. Someone's been slowly gathering intelligence for a much larger operation." "What do you mean?" "Your mother didn't just steal from your business, Victoria. We found evidence that she's been using your personal information to open credit accounts, business loans, and investment vehicles. You're the victim of comprehensive identity theft." Thomas pulled up another screen. "And she's not working alone. The technical sophistication of this operation suggests a network of people with specialized skills: identity thieves, money launderers, cyber criminals." I stood up and walked to the window, trying to process the magnitude of my mother's betrayal. She hadn't just stolen money, she'd systematically dismantled my life while planning her escape. "Okay," I said, turning back to my team. "What's our strategy?" Jennifer smiled grimly. "We set a trap. Your family thinks they've outsmarted everyone, but they've left digital footprints everywhere. If we can get them to move the remaining cryptocurrency, we can trace it." "How?" "We feed them false information. Make them believe the FBI investigation has gaps they can exploit. Get them to transfer more money, convert more cryptocurrency, or access more accounts. Every transaction creates evidence." Thomas nodded enthusiastically. "And I can monitor their digital communications in real time. If they're using the same spyware to coordinate their activities, we can turn their own surveillance network against them." Derek looked concerned. "Victoria, are you sure you want to actively deceive your family? This could destroy any possibility of reconciliation." "Derek, they've been deceiving me for months while planning to ruin my life and disappear. At this point, I'm more concerned about saving our company and protecting our employees than preserving relationships with people who see me as a target." Margaret pulled out her phone. I have a contact at the Oregon State Banking Commission. If we can prove systematic fraud, they can freeze assets before they leave the country. Do it, I said. Over the next 4 hours, we crafted an elaborate disinformation campaign. I called my mother and brother, playing the role of a devastated daughter who decided to give up and declare bankruptcy rather than fight the FBI investigation. I told them I was planning to dissolve the company, liquidate all remaining assets, and move away from Portland to escape the scandal. The FBI agent said cryptocurrency transactions are nearly impossible to trace if they're done right. I lied to Jake during our phone conversation. She seemed frustrated that you guys chose such an untraceable method. Really? Jake's voice carried relief. I was worried we'd left tracks. No, apparently cryptocurrency is like digital cash. Once it's moved a few times, there's no way to follow it. That evening, Thomas's monitoring equipment detected multiple communications between Jake and unknown parties. My brother was coordinating with at least 3 other people, sharing information about FBI investigation procedures and planning additional financial transfers. Victoria. Jennifer said, reviewing the intercepted communications, "Your family is part of a much larger criminal organization. They're not amateur thieves. They're part of a professional identity theft ring that's been operating in the Pacific Northwest for over 2 years. How many other families have they destroyed? Based on these communications, at least 12 other victims. Your mother wasn't just gambling away money, she was recruiting targets for a criminal network." Agent Murphy arrived at our office at 8 p.m. to review our evidence. When we showed her the intercepted communications and traced financial records, her expression turned serious. "Ms. Morrison, this case just became much bigger than family theft. You've uncovered a major criminal organization. We're going to need your continued cooperation to bring down the entire network." What does that mean? It means you keep playing your role. Let them think you're giving up. Meanwhile, we'll be ready to arrest them the moment they make their next move. As I drove home that night, I realized my mother had given me an unexpected gift. Her betrayal had revealed a criminal network that was destroying families across our region. By fighting back, I wasn't just saving my company, I was protecting other potential victims from experiencing the same devastation. But first, I had to watch my own family walk deeper into a trap they'd created for themselves. 3 days later, our strategy reached its critical phase. Thomas's monitoring equipment had captured detailed communications between Jake and his criminal associates, revealing plans to move the remaining cryptocurrency before the FBI could expand their investigation. My role was simple: continue appearing defeated while secretly coordinating with law enforcement to document every transaction. I called Jake on Thursday morning, injecting exhaustion into my voice. "I'm meeting with bankruptcy attorneys this afternoon. Derek and Margaret think we should dissolve the company immediately before the FBI expands their investigation to include the whole business." "Victoria, are you sure that's the right move?" Jake's voice carried what sounded like genuine concern. "Maybe you could rebuild somewhere else." "With what money, Jake? Even if the insurance eventually pays out, my reputation in Portland is destroyed. Word's gotten around about the FBI investigation. 3 more clients canceled contracts yesterday." "What about the cryptocurrency? Did the FBI say anything more about tracing it?" I delivered the crucial lie we'd prepared. Agent Murphy told me cryptocurrency transfers are completely anonymous if they go through the right exchanges. She seemed really frustrated about it, said it's like trying to trace cash transactions. Apparently, if money moves through more than 2 cryptocurrency exchanges, it becomes impossible to follow. That's what I'd heard too. So they're not going to recover anything. Not unless you guys made major mistakes, which obviously you didn't. Jake, I know you were just trying to help Mom with her gambling debts. Agent Murphy said family members who cooperate early usually get lighter sentences. Sentences. "Victoria, you're not really going to press charges against us, are you?" "I don't have a choice anymore. This is federal crime now. But if you and Mom cooperate with the FBI, show remorse, help them understand how the gambling addiction drove everything." I let my voice trail off. Maybe the judge would be lenient with family members who were manipulated by addiction. That afternoon, Thomas's equipment detected frantic communications between Jake and multiple unknown parties. My brother was sharing our conversation details with his criminal network, assuring them that the FBI's investigation had hit dead ends. Agent Murphy called me at 6 p.m. "Victoria, your brother just accessed the primary cryptocurrency wallet. He's initiating transfers to 3 different exchanges exactly like we hoped." "Can you trace the transfers?" "Every single transaction. Your brother's criminal associates think they're being clever by using multiple exchanges, but each conversion leaves digital fingerprints. We're tracking everything in real time." Jennifer Hartley called an hour later with even better news. "Victoria, the Florida property purchase has been reversed. When the FBI contacted Miami Beach authorities about the property bought under Patricia Wells' false identity, they discovered your mother had used fraudulent documents. The sale's been voided and $800,000 is being returned to a frozen account." But the biggest break came at 9 p.m. when Thomas detected communications revealing the full scope of the criminal network. Jake was coordinating with identity theft specialists who'd been targeting small business owners across Oregon and Washington for over 2 years. My family weren't amateur thieves. They were key players in an organized criminal operation. Victoria. Agent Murphy called me at home. "We're executing arrests tomorrow morning. Based on the evidence your investigation generated, we're taking down 12 people involved in this network. Your mother and brother will be arrested, but their cooperation level will determine their sentencing." "What does that mean for my company?" "The cryptocurrency is being frozen tonight. Asset recovery will take several weeks through court proceedings, but the judge has agreed to expedited hearings given the business impact. You should have at least partial funding restored within 10 days. Friday morning arrived gray and drizzling, typical Pacific Northwest weather that matched my mood perfectly. I was drinking coffee in my kitchen when Agent Murphy called at 7 a.m. "Victoria, we've arrested Linda Morrison in Miami Beach. She was attempting to board a flight to the Cayman Islands using the Patricia Wells identity. We found multiple passports, over $50,000 in cash, and detailed plans for establishing permanent residence offshore." My mother had been planning to disappear completely, leaving Jake and me to face the consequences of her criminal network. The woman who'd taught me about family loyalty was prepared to abandon her own children to save herself. What about Jake? "Arrested at his apartment in Beaverton 20 minutes ago. He's already asking about cooperation agreements. Apparently, he had no idea about your mother's escape plans or the full scope of the criminal network." At 9 a.m., Agent Murphy and 2 other FBI agents met me at Morrison Dynamics headquarters to coordinate the final phase of arrests. Derek, Margaret, Jennifer, and Thomas gathered in our conference room as agents provided updates on the morning's operations. "We've arrested 9 people so far, including the primary cryptocurrency conversion specialist and 3 identity document forgers. The network was much larger than we initially suspected, operating across 4 states." Margaret asked the question we all wanted answered. What about asset recovery? Approximately $1.8 million has been frozen in various accounts. The cryptocurrency conversions were stopped before completion, so most of the stolen funds are recoverable. Ms. Morrison, your company should receive at least 80% of the stolen money within 2 weeks. Derek looked relieved but concerned. What about our reputation? Our clients are still worried about business stability. Agent Murphy smiled slightly. Actually, we're prepared to issue a public statement commending Morrison Dynamics for their cooperation in breaking up a major criminal network. Your company's professional handling of this situation should enhance your reputation, not damage it. Thomas pulled up his monitoring screens one final time. Victoria, the spyware on your devices has been completely removed. Your family's criminal associates will no longer have access to your personal or business communications. As the FBI agents prepared to leave, Agent Murphy handed me a business card. Ms. Morrison, your cooperation was instrumental in breaking up this criminal network. If you're ever interested in consulting work with federal law enforcement cybersecurity firms, would be very interested in your experiences. After everyone left, I sat alone in our conference room looking out at the city where I'd built my business and discovered my family's betrayal. The financial crisis was ending, but the emotional recovery would take much longer. Margaret knocked on the door. Victoria Henderson and Associates just called. They want to schedule a meeting next week to discuss expanding their contract with us. Apparently, news about our cooperation with the FBI has impressed their leadership. Derek appeared behind her holding his phone. And I just got a call from Portland Business Journal. They want to interview you about small business security and family fraud prevention. For the first time in a week, I smiled genuinely. Margaret, Derek, thank you for standing by me through this nightmare. Victoria, Derek said seriously, we're not just business partners. We're family. The real kind of family that supports each other instead of exploiting each other. As I prepared to leave the office that evening, my phone rang. Grandpa Harold. Victoria, sweetheart, I just heard about the arrests. Are you okay? I'm going to be fine, Grandpa. The company's going to survive and the money will be recovered. I'm proud of you for fighting back, honey. Your grandmother would be proud too. You showed strength and integrity under the worst possible circumstances. Grandpa, what's going to happen to Mom and Jake? That's up to the courts now, sweetheart. But they made their choices and you made yours. You chose to protect innocent people instead of covering up crimes. That's the difference between real family loyalty and enabling criminal behavior. That night, I realized my mother's betrayal had taught me something valuable about the difference between family bonds and family toxicity. Real love means protecting each other's best interests, not exploiting each other's trust. Tomorrow I would begin rebuilding not just my company, but my understanding of what family really means. 2 weeks later, I sat in federal district court watching my mother's arraignment hearing. Linda Morrison stood before Judge Patricia Harrison wearing an orange jumpsuit, looking smaller and older than I'd ever seen her. The prosecutor outlined charges of wire fraud, identity theft, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit financial crimes across state lines. Jake's hearing had been the previous day. His defense attorney negotiated a plea agreement, 18 months minimum security prison, 5 years probation, and full restitution to victims in exchange for testimony against the criminal network's leadership. My brother looked broken as he accepted responsibility for his role in destroying our family. Your Honor, Mom's public defender argued my client was driven to these crimes by gambling addiction and threats from loan sharks. She accepts full responsibility and wishes to make amends to her victims, especially her daughter. Judge Harrison reviewed the case files with careful attention. Ms. Morrison, the court recognizes that addiction contributed to your initial poor choices. However, evidence shows you escalated from personal gambling debts to orchestrating sophisticated identity theft operations targeting multiple families. The court cannot ignore the calculated nature of your criminal activities. Your Honor. Mom's voice was barely audible. I know I've destroyed my family's trust. I want to make things right with my daughter and the other people I've hurt. Ms. Morrison, you'll have 5 years in federal prison to consider how to make amends. Additionally, you're ordered to pay $2.4 million in restitution to all identified victims and surrender any assets acquired through criminal activities. After the hearing, I met with Victim Advocate Coordinator Rachel Phillips to discuss the impact statements from other families affected by Mom's criminal network. 12 families had lost businesses, homes, or life savings to the identity theft operation. The youngest victim was a 24-year-old graduate student whose entire educational fund had been stolen. The oldest was a retired couple who'd lost their house after Mom's network forged loan documents using their identities. Victoria. Rachel explained, your family's criminal activities affected far more people than just your business, but your cooperation with the FBI prevented this network from victimizing additional families. Agent Murphy joined us for the debriefing session. Ms. Morrison, the final asset recovery is complete. Morrison Dynamics will receive $2.1 million more than was originally stolen because we recovered money from previous thefts your mother's network had committed. What about the other victims? Full restitution for everyone. The court ordered liquidation of all assets acquired through criminal activities, including the Miami property, luxury vehicles, and cryptocurrency accounts. Every victim will be made financially whole. Derek and Margaret picked me up from the courthouse, and we drove back to Morrison Dynamics in thoughtful silence. Our company had not only survived the crisis, but expanded during the recovery period. Word about our cooperation with federal law enforcement had brought new clients seeking businesses with proven integrity and security practices. Victoria, Margaret said as we pulled into our parking lot. I've been thinking about something. This experience taught us vulnerabilities in our security systems that most companies never discover until it's too late. What are you suggesting? What if we expanded Morrison Dynamics to include cybersecurity consulting, help other small businesses protect themselves from the kind of sophisticated fraud we experienced? Derek nodded enthusiastically. We could offer comprehensive security audits, employee training, family business protection protocols. There's obviously a market need for these services. That afternoon, I called Jennifer Hartley and Thomas Rodriguez to discuss partnership opportunities. Within 2 hours, we'd outlined a new division of Morrison Dynamics focused on helping small businesses prevent family fraud and identity theft. Victoria. Jennifer said your case study could become the foundation for training programs helping other business owners recognize warning signs of family exploitation. Thomas added, and the technical security measures we developed during your investigation could be packaged into affordable protection systems for companies with limited IT resources. 3 weeks later, Morrison Dynamics officially launched our Security and Fraud Prevention Division. Our first client was Henderson and Associates, who wanted comprehensive protection after learning about our experiences. Within a month, we had 12 companies requesting security audits and family fraud prevention planning. The most meaningful moment came when Grandpa Harold visited our expanded offices. He walked through our new security consultation rooms and employee training facilities with obvious pride. Victoria, your grandmother always said that strength isn't measured by what you endure, but by how you help others avoid the pain you've experienced. Grandpa, I keep thinking about how you sold your antique collection trying to save Mom from her gambling debts. That money could have helped so many people in better ways. Sweetheart, I don't regret trying to help my daughter. I regret that my help enabled her to hurt you and others. There's a difference between supporting someone's recovery and enabling their destructive behavior. That evening, I received a letter from Jake in federal prison. His handwriting looked shaky, uncertain. Victoria, I know apologies can't undo what I did to you and your company. I want you to know that I've been attending addiction counseling and cybersecurity ethics programs. When I get out, I want to spend my life helping prevent other families from experiencing what we put you through. I understand if you can't forgive me, but I hope someday we can rebuild trust between us. I set the letter aside, not ready to respond, but touched by Jake's apparent genuine remorse. Healing family relationships would take time if it happened at all. 6 months after the arrests, Morrison Dynamics employed 32 people and had become the Pacific Northwest's leading small business security consulting firm. Our family fraud prevention workshops were booked 3 months in advance, and we'd helped 14 companies avoid attempted identity theft operations. The most satisfying moment came when Agent Murphy called to tell me that our case had become a training model for FBI cybercrime investigators. Victoria, your systematic approach to fighting back against family fraud has helped us solve 6 similar cases across the country. Agent Murphy, what's happening with the broader criminal network? Complete dismantlement. 43 people arrested across 4 states. Your family's cooperation was crucial, but your strategic approach to gathering evidence was what made the entire investigation possible. That night, I stood on the balcony of my new apartment overlooking the Willamette River, thinking about the journey from devastating betrayal to professional triumph. My mother had tried to destroy my life to save her own, but her betrayal had actually revealed strengths I didn't know I possessed. The phone rang. Grandpa Harold. Victoria, I have news. Your mother called from prison today. She's been accepted into an intensive addiction treatment program. She wanted me to tell you she understands if you never forgive her, but she's committed to becoming the person she should have been all along. How do you feel about that, Grandpa? Proud of her for facing her problems, but realistic about the damage she's caused. Recovery doesn't erase consequences, sweetheart, but it's the first step toward earning back trust. And Jake, he's been accepted into a federal prison education program focused on cybersecurity ethics. He's studying to become a white hat hacker, someone who helps companies identify security vulnerabilities instead of exploiting them. As I ended the call, I realized that justice wasn't just about punishment, it was about transformation. My family members were facing consequences for their choices, but they were also working to become better people. Whether that would lead to rebuilt relationships remained to be seen. What mattered most was that I'd chosen to fight back rather than be victimized, and that choice had protected not just my company, but dozens of other potential victims. Tomorrow, Morrison Dynamics would continue growing, helping other families avoid the pain mine had experienced. That felt like the most meaningful kind of justice. 1 year after Mom's first phone call from Denver, I stood before 300 small business owners at the Pacific Northwest Security Conference, delivering the keynote address about family fraud prevention. Morrison Dynamics had grown to 45 employees and become the region's premier business security consulting firm, but the personal journey felt more significant than any professional achievement. Family exploitation is the most devastating form of theft, I told the audience, because it destroys trust along with financial security. But it's also an opportunity to discover strengths you didn't know you possessed and to build the kind of family relationships based on genuine support rather than manipulation. After the presentation, dozens of business owners approached me with their own stories of family betrayal and recovery. A restaurant owner whose brother had embezzled payroll funds, a software developer whose mother had stolen client payments, a construction contractor whose uncle had forged business loan documents. Each story reinforced how common family exploitation was and how rarely victims fought back effectively. Margaret Williams, now our Chief Operations Officer, joined me for the drive back to Portland. Victoria, that speech was incredible. I think you helped at least 20 people realize they're not alone in dealing with family fraud. Margaret, remember when you first discovered those security breaches? If you hadn't been documenting everything so carefully, we never could have built the case that brought down the entire network. And if you hadn't been brave enough to fight back instead of just accepting the loss, dozens of other families would still be getting victimized. Derek met us at Morrison Dynamics headquarters with exciting news. Victoria, I just got off the phone with the Seattle office of the FBI. They want to contract with us to develop a national training program for small businesses facing family fraud. This could expand our consulting practice across the entire West Coast. What would that involve? Creating standardized security protocols, training materials, and response procedures that other FBI offices could implement in their jurisdictions. Essentially, they want to turn our experience into a national resource. Thomas Rodriguez, now our Chief Technology Officer, pulled up statistics on his laptop. Victoria, in the 12 months since we launched our security division, companies using our family fraud prevention protocols have reported 0 successful exploitation attempts. We're not just catching criminals, we're preventing crimes. That afternoon, I received a call from Grandpa Harold. His voice carried an excitement I hadn't heard since before Mom's arrest. Victoria, I have wonderful news. The insurance company that held policies on my antique collection just called. Apparently, when the FBI recovered assets from your mother's criminal network, they found several of my pieces in storage facilities. The pocket watch, 3 Civil War rifles, and your grandmother's china set are all being returned. Grandpa, that's amazing. I thought those were gone forever. There's more, sweetheart. The FBI's asset recovery included cryptocurrency investments your mother's network had made with stolen funds. Those investments appreciated significantly while frozen in court accounts. After all victims receive full restitution, there will be surplus funds available for victim impact programs. What does that mean? It means you'll be receiving an additional settlement beyond the original theft amount, but more importantly, you can establish a foundation to help other families recover from similar crimes. The idea sparked immediate enthusiasm. Grandpa, what if we created a nonprofit organization providing legal assistance counseling services and financial planning, help for families dealing with internal fraud? I think that would honor your grandmother's memory beautifully, Victoria. She always believed that surviving hardship meant helping others avoid the same pain. 3 months later, the Morrison Family Recovery Foundation opened offices next to Morrison Dynamics. Our nonprofit provided free legal consultation, family therapy services, and financial planning assistance for families dealing with exploitation by relatives. Jennifer Hartley agreed to serve as the foundation's financial advisor, while Rachel Phillips left her victim advocacy position to become our executive director. The foundation's first major success came when we helped the Patel family recover from embezzlement by a trusted son-in-law who'd been stealing from their family restaurant for 2 years. Our intervention saved their business and helped them rebuild family relationships damaged by betrayal and financial stress. Victoria Rachel reported during our monthly board meeting, "We've helped 37 families in our first quarter of operations. The combination of legal support counseling and financial planning is giving people hope instead of just coping with trauma." More personally meaningful was the slow process of rebuilding relationships with Jake. After 18 months in federal prison, my brother was released to a halfway house program in Portland. His first call was to ask if we could meet for coffee. Victoria. Jake said when we met at a downtown cafe, "I know I can't undo what I did to you and your business, but I want you to know that I've spent every day of the past year and a half understanding how my choices hurt you and so many other people." Jake, what are your plans now? I've been accepted into Portland State's cybersecurity master's program. I want to become a white hat security consultant, helping companies identify vulnerabilities before criminals can exploit them. Basically, I want to spend my life preventing other families from experiencing what I put you through. That sounds like meaningful work. Victoria, I need you to know something. Mom never told me about the escape plans or the false identity. I thought we were just taking money to pay off gambling debts. When I learned she'd been planning to disappear and leave us to face the consequences, his voice broke. I realized I'd been manipulated just like you were. Jake, I understand that Mom's manipulation was sophisticated, but you still chose to help her access my accounts without asking questions. You're absolutely right. I made choices that hurt you regardless of what I believed the reasons were. I accept full responsibility for my part in destroying your trust. We talked for 2 hours about family responsibility and the possibility of rebuilding relationships based on honesty rather than enabling destructive behavior. I didn't forgive Jake that day, but I saw genuine remorse and commitment to making amends through his actions rather than just words. 6 months later, Jake successfully completed his master's degree and was hired by a Portland cybersecurity firm specializing in preventing family fraud. His thesis project developed early warning systems that help companies identify when employee security credentials might be compromised by family members. The most difficult conversation came when Mom was released from federal prison after serving 4 years of her sentence. She called to ask if we could meet, but I wasn't ready for face-to-face contact. Instead, I suggested we start with letters. Victoria. She wrote in her first letter, "I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know that I've spent 4 years understanding the difference between explaining my behavior and excusing it. Gambling addiction motivated my initial poor choices, but greed and selfishness drove me to hurt you and so many other families." Her letters continued monthly describing addiction recovery programs, financial literacy education, and volunteer work with other women dealing with gambling problems. Slowly, I began to see evidence of genuine transformation rather than manipulation. "I'm not asking to be part of your life," she wrote after a year of correspondence. "I'm asking for the opportunity to make amends through actions rather than words. I want to volunteer with your foundation, helping other families recognize the warning signs I exhibited." After extensive discussion with Rachel Phillips and our family therapist, we agreed to let Mom volunteer with foundation educational programs. Her role involved sharing her story with families dealing with gambling addiction and financial manipulation, helping them understand how addiction can escalate into criminal behavior if left untreated. Victoria, Mom, said during our first supervised meeting in 3 years, "I see the incredible work you're doing to help families recover from crimes like mine. I'm proud of the person you've become, despite what I put you through. Mom, I'm glad you're working on recovery, but rebuilding trust will take time if it happens at all." I understand completely. Trust must be earned through consistent actions over years, not promised through words during emotional conversations. 2 years later, Morrison Dynamics employed 70 people and had consulting contracts in 8 states. The Morrison Family Recovery Foundation had helped over 200 families recover from internal fraud and rebuild damaged relationships. Jake had been promoted to senior security consultant and was engaged to a wonderful woman he'd met in graduate school. Most importantly, I'd learned that family loyalty means protecting each other from harm, not enabling destructive behavior. Real love involves holding people accountable for their choices while supporting their efforts to become better people. Standing in our expanded offices overlooking the Willamette River, I thought about how Mom's betrayal had accidentally become the foundation for helping hundreds of families protect themselves from similar exploitation. Her attempt to destroy my life had actually revealed my capacity for resilience, strategic thinking, and building meaningful relationships based on trust rather than obligation. Grandpa Harold, now 82 and still sharp as ever, visited the office weekly to share coffee and wisdom with our newest employees. His perspective on family forgiveness and second chances helped guide both our business philosophy and foundation principles. Victoria. He said during one of our coffee conversations, "Your grandmother would be amazed by what you've built from such painful circumstances. You've turned family betrayal into family protection for hundreds of people." "Grandpa, I still struggle with anger sometimes. Not about the money, but about how Mom was willing to sacrifice our family relationships for her escape plan." Sweetheart, anger is appropriate when people you love choose to hurt you. But don't let anger prevent you from recognizing genuine change when it happens. Your mother spent 4 years learning to be the person she should have been all along. As I prepared to leave the office that evening, Derek knocked on my door with a folder of new client contracts and foundation partnership agreements. "Victoria, I wanted you to see the impact report Rachel compiled. In the 3 years since we started the foundation, families we've helped have reported preventing over $12 million in additional fraud attempts. We're not just helping people recover, we're preventing future crimes." "Derek, do you ever think about how different things would be if I'd chosen to cover up Mom's theft instead of fighting back?" "Every day, but I also think about how your choice to fight back has protected so many other families from experiencing that devastation. Your mother's betrayal accidentally became the catalyst for one of the most meaningful business and social impact initiatives in the Pacific Northwest." That night, I received a text message from Jake. "Victoria, I got promoted to Regional Security Director. My first project is developing family fraud prevention protocols for credit unions across Oregon and Washington. Thank you for showing me that making amends means dedicating your life to preventing the harm you once caused." As I drove home through Portland's evening traffic, I reflected on the journey from devastating betrayal to professional triumph and personal healing. My mother had tried to destroy my life to save her own, but her betrayal had actually revealed strengths I didn't know I possessed and led to relationships based on genuine mutual support. The experience taught me that family isn't determined by blood relations. It's defined by people who consistently choose to protect and support each other's best interests. Derek, Margaret, Jennifer, Thomas, Grandpa Harold, and even Jake, through his genuine efforts to make amends, had become my real family. Most importantly, I'd learned that surviving betrayal isn't about forgetting what happened or pretending relationships can return to their previous state. It's about choosing to build something better from the wreckage, using painful experiences to protect others from similar harm. Morrison Dynamics and the Morrison Family Recovery Foundation would continue growing, helping more families prevent and recover from internal exploitation. Whether my relationship with Mom would eventually heal remained uncertain, but her transformation seemed genuine, and her commitment to making amends through service appeared sincere. What mattered most was that I'd refused to be victimized, fought back strategically instead of emotionally, and transformed personal devastation into protection and healing for hundreds of other families. Have you ever had to choose between protecting a family member and doing what's right for yourself and others? Sometimes the people closest to us can cause the most damage, but fighting back doesn't mean giving up on the possibility of eventual healing. What would you do if someone you loved betrayed your trust in such a fundamental way? Thank you for following Victoria's journey from devastating betrayal to triumph and healing. If this story resonated with you or helped you think differently about family boundaries and personal strength, please like this video, subscribe for more true stories about overcoming family challenges, share it with someone who might find hope in Victoria's experience, and leave a comment about your own thoughts on balancing family loyalty with personal protection. Remember that real love means holding people accountable for their choices while supporting their genuine efforts to change and grow.